And we're live. Let me hit the
What's up?
let me hit the intro so I can have it. Where's it at? There it is. And welcome to another episode of the Catholic Libertarian Podcast. This is another episode of the Explain to Me Like I'm Five. Today we're doing the Mises Caucus strategy like I'm five. And for that, I got the only person in Mises Caucus I actually like and respect, Jacob. So Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And that was a jab. I actually like a lot of people in the Mises Caucus. There's a lot of them I'm like Tom Woods is a part of it. So I gotta respect it a little bit. But let's do the shit for a little bit while we let some people hop in the chat, hop in here. Let's tweet it out. I'm gonna tweet it out real quick, actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna copy the link as well, and because that little trick I tried didn't work, the audio didn't pull through, so
that's that sucks.
I will just copy and paste. This really sucks because my camera's in the way of my. Wait, I'm always dumb and forget I have dual monitors, and I can go like this. Oh, I can see. All right. Come watch me school a dumb paleo. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna put come watch me quiz a artist on stuff.
Well, that could go both ways.
That could go both ways.
Or not.
It was a weird toss up on that thumbnail today, trying to figure if that's say is this meme or Rob's meme because they were both. So
Rob's
good.
was better.
Yeah, it was good, and I think I might use that one for the post. Honestly, like after it all happened, instead of use that one for the main one post. But for the waiting, I'm like, this is the waiting one. Okay,
right.
There we go. Close up my other tabs now.
Good. I got some freaking gnats flying around here. All right, well, I'm good to go whenever you are, my friend.
Sounds good. So first, I'm pretty sure everyone knows who you are. You're on all the podcasts at this point now. You're going everywhere. Just give people a little recap. Who are you, and what is your are you just one of those sit posters on Twitter, or what's your involvement with the Mises Caucus? Like, what level of involvement are you at, and explaining your job?
Okay, so my name is Jacob Daniel. I am a podcaster primarily, but I'm also involved in the Mises Caucus. I'm a state organizer in the state of PA. We got 7 or 8 state organizers here in PA, and in general, the state organizers have a lot of duties, but we kind of specialize once some states only have 2, and so they do everything. But in PA, we have enough that we kind of specialize. But it also changes based upon what's going on right now. But the general duties are helping candidates run their campaigns, recruiting new members, getting them plugged into the caucus, plugged into the Libertarian Party at their local level, the state level, and the national level. Helping them to attend convention, attend their county meetings, showing them how to get involved, the political process. Then there's an educational element to it as well, because a lot of people who join are new libertarians, or they're not even really libertarians yet. They're independents or people that left one of the 2 parties, and they're still learning about it. So we kind of serve as also kind of people that new members can come and talk to about the philosophy, about questions they have, and we kind of help to push them in the right direction, either give them books to read, articles to read, podcasts to watch, or just answer them outright. We also help to promulgate the culture within
How often do you plug you on? How often do you plug your own show to these new people?
Oh, every time. Actually, here in PA, there's this weird rule where you have to subscribe to my podcast first before you could become a member. So,
now that I know you guys are crooked, I actually have more respect for you as a political party.
Oh gosh, no. I do have. You're not on Facebook, but so it's funny. A little tangent here. When Facebook took down the main Mises Caucus page for a little bit, a few weeks ago, it was taken down a little for a little while. And while it was gone and we weren't sure if it was going to come back, I created a new group. And it was okay, this group's either going to be just a replacement or it'll be a stand-in, whatever. And I named it because how there's the Waffle House Caucus, there's the Seafood Caucus and all that. Mm-hmm. So I named it the McDonald's Caucus with MC in quotation marks, and then put in parentheses, definitely not Mises Caucus.
Definitely not Mises Caucus.
And that group has become primarily a shit posting group after the main group came back.
Nice.
And it's all like McDonald's memes, and a lot of like McNukes, and everything's Mick. So it's really it's developed this nice little subculture. But in that group, I grift my podcast like crazy.
This episode is gonna be relabeled the Mick strategy. That's gonna be the
right.
Like relabeled us. Like it is now the Mick strategy. Now, I'm on Facebook, but I'm on there just to troll family members. Like that's my only thing I do on it now. Like I got a lot of family up in Georgia, and I tweeted out during the whole like election like recount nonsense, saying we need a recount in Georgia. Not because I think it was rigged or anything. I just don't trust y'all to count. Like all I do is I just troll all my family. Most of them have me blockers. I don't blame them, but
yeah, my family minus like my dad, pretty much. My dad's like libertarian adjacent, like he's close. So he interacts with my Facebook. My wife does, obviously, of course. But other than that, everyone that's my family or people I went to high school with kind of leave me alone on Facebook. They're just kind of like, "Hey, Jacob's this crazy libertarian now who just constantly talks about politics." So my sister's a big lefty, so she and I don't get along on Facebook. So she hasn't blocked me or unfriended me, but she just completely has me on mute and doesn't comment on anything I put out.
My sister could be a lefty. I don't know. I just know she's dumb. Like that's all I know about her politics is that I can always trust that I have the dumbest take on literally anything. That's all I know about her politics. Like I'll see her post anything political. I'm just like I know it's gonna be stupid as hell. She is my sister. I love the death because she's my family, but she is the epitome of white woman. I mean, vegan after one podcast, not even a podcast, like a 30-minute like TikTok vegan.
My sister's been vegan for over 10 years, 11 years. She's actually the one that got me into. I was vegan for about 5 years, about 5.5. I stopped during when the COVID lockdowns happened. I was like, yeah, stuff's getting too serious. Things are getting too hard. This diet is just one unnecessary annoyance for me to have to keep up. I kind of kept it up for a while out of more like pride, because after a while I kind of like didn't care as much about it, but I was like, I committed to doing this. I wanted to kind of prove that you didn't have to be a crazy leftist to be vegan and to like depoliticize it. And I still like eat a lot of like vegan things. I don't do dairy really so much, but I've reintroduced.
You look like you don't do dairy.
I look like I don't do dairy. What, I don't have giant man boobs and I'm not all bloated and stuff, right?
Yes, you're not bloated. This is peak man performance, Jacob.
I actually, I think I would do raw milk if I was going to do cow milk, because I think that's the best way to do it. But I don't know. I get used to my non-dairy milks, and
I don't do milk because it tastes disgusting. I guess
Yeah, somebody made I think was it Nick Ashley who made a Twitter poll with like, how do you drink your milk? And I was just like, ew. Like even back before I went vegan, I was like, who drinks milk?
Yeah,
like who's just like, I want a nice fresh glass of cold milk.
You put chocolate syrup in it, and maybe we'll have a conversation. But like, you gotta like pour like this much milk, this much chocolate. Basically, just give me the syrup, and then we'll.
Yeah, I mean, like if I have like I don't know fresh baked chocolate chip cookies or something, and I want to dip them in milk. I mean, that's like the only times I can remember ever pouring a glass of milk in my life.
Yeah, I don't even need cereal. Like that's how much I don't like milk. I don't need cereal because of it. I don't know. I was vegan for about 2 weeks. I tried it for 2 weeks, and my entire body broke out in hives. I don't know what it is. There's something inside this vegan, like, I didn't do fruits and vegetables like an actual healthy diet. I just did a bunch of vegan burgers and vegan hot dogs and shit.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of additives in there, and
my body rejected it hard. I mean, from here down was bright red. I couldn't go to work. I had to lay in bed and just, like, not move because everything hurt. It was. Now, what it was is the only reason I don't really give it a chance is I have some hippie cousins that are like the long hair, skinny, vegan, weed smoking hippie people, and they come over. I had an apartment for like 7 months before everything went to shit, and they would come over and they'd bring vegan food, but they also would bring weed and beer, and so I accepted the vegan food on the condition that they would bring the weed and the beer. That was the only reason I tolerated it. But
well, what's funny, and like to connect this back to what we are supposed to be talking about, it was actually because of my being vegan that I actually, through happenstance, probably even became libertarian and met the Mises Caucus, because while I was vegan, I got involved in like local vegan meetup groups, and there was this one girl who was a libertarian, and she was friends with people who were in the Mises Caucus. So it was actually, that was sort of like one of those weird, like, as a Christian, I kind of look back, I think you do, like, we all do this, like we look back and go, okay, like, why did I do that dumb thing? And it's like, you know what? Probably I had to do that dumb thing for me to be in this position, for this thing to happen. And so it's like, okay,
I'm still waiting for that second part. Like, I'm still in the dumb things. I'm still waiting for that second. Like, okay, what is that going to lead to? Because it's like 4 years now, this dumb sit in a row. I'm waiting for it. Like, finally, this is why. I'm eating a whole baked chicken right now, based.
Whole baked chicken, right? As long as it's not. I could eat like a whole like oven roasted chicken, but like if you got like a whole fried chicken and sat down and ate that, oh my gosh, like that's. I would probably throw up.
He's from Texas. Like, this is some legit, like, Texas. Yeah. I'll go to Publix. I'll get a thing of popcorn chicken and a thing of that rotisserie chicken, and I'm just like fucking sick.
Rotisserie chicken's okay, better than fried. Just fried chicken's just so much grease, and oh my god, I like fried chicken, but a whole one, like, oh no. No.
Deep fried. I'll deep fry a turkey and just go to town. Like, that is. I had a turkey deep fry in my apartment, and that was my go-to. I fucking love turkey.
I slept next to a turkey a few weeks ago.
Like a living one?
Like a live turkey. So my friend Grant had a get-together with all Mises Caucus people. We had Adam Nutter come out and do comedy, and we camped out in his backyard. And he has like this little farm, this little homestead, and he's got chickens, he's got ducks, and he's got 2 turkeys. And the turkey literally all night does gobble, 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 gobble over and over again.
This is, like, of all the things I expected in this podcast, I did not expect you to do a turkey impression. That was like the furthest from. I had like debates in my head. Like, these things are gonna happen. This thing possibly happen. I'm like, what's you gonna expect? Jacob's gonna do a turkey impression.
Listen, you join the Mises Caucus. You camp out, do weird drugs. You meet some turkeys. You do some weird stuff with them. We don't talk about it. And, it's definitely not a cult.
Not a Florida man? You say not a Florida man? That sounds like a typical Florida Friday.
Plus, the only thing missing is wrestling crocodiles. Then it's actually Florida.
I have a crocodile story from work. So I worked here, a year into my job. And we're doing this thing on as-built. So this Mosaic has this giant. They basically make a pond that have all the water flow into. And because Mosaic has all it is with the county, it's supposed to be you make the pond, and before you put water in it, you got to get it approved. So we had to go out there every 10, 15 feet, get a TPS side. Because Mosaic is so crooked, when so is the government, they can wait 10 years before they send it in. So they wait 10 years to actually do it. So by the time we get to come out there, it's full of water, and it's growing up. So we're going through water up to our nips. There's trees everywhere. It's just disgusting. So I'm walking into it, and it's like above my ankle. And I step on something. I look down, and I see a baby gator just squirming all around under my foot. So I let it up and go, no big deal. I look up, I see it running towards mama. And I have never moved so fast in my ass. I hauled ass. I'm running the truck, and my coworker who's sitting there smoking a cigarette, like, the fuck you doing? Get back to work. Like, there's a gator. He opened the truck door and hopped in and left it for me to dive into it. Like, it was a fucking mess.
All right, before we get back to the Mises Caucus, I need to verify one thing. Is that Batman Beyond on your t-shirt?
Yes, it is. I made it.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yes. I actually just started watching it last year. Because my mom would not let me watch it.
Really?
I was allowed to watch Batman, Superman, Justice League, but she saw that Batman movie when they're dancing in cages and was like, no Christian set of mine's going to watch women dancing cages. And so I never got. And my aunt, she's married with kids, watched it by herself and would talk to me about it. So she's like, you watch this one? Yeah. I'm like, no, I can't. She goes, well, it's really cool. Your mom's lame. It's like, well, I know that. So I started last year, and it's fucking great, man. It's solid.
So, wow. No words.
Well, I couldn't watch Power Rangers either. Like, I was like, my mom, her standard for new shows is you got to ask for more toys. That was the standard. And so what I was allowed to watch was how expensive are the toys for it. So it's a fair metric, I guess. I don't mind looking back on it. It's probably a smart move. Anyway. Okay. Mises Caucus. We got enough people in the chat. Or two of them. So what exactly is it? Like, what was who started it? What's the origin story? What is this Mises Caucus? Hello.
All right. So the Mises Caucus, I guess to sum it up somewhat, is sorry, I'm having a weird audio problem. Let me fix this. All right. I think it's better now. I was getting weird feedback, so I was like hearing you talk twice. So the Mises Caucus was started by Michael Heiss, a few other people back in like 2017. They did an End the Fed rally, which went really well. Up until that point, Mike and them had only really tried working in the GOP, but had basically not, they had, hadn't got much done except at the local level. And even then it wasn't really like what they got done was basically through their own efforts. Like Mike got decriminalization passed in his own district, but the GOP didn't help him. He just basically did it himself and, went to his like local sheriff and went to his local legislators and basically got it done. So that kind of, and Heiss and a lot of people that started it, they're people that came out of the Ron Paul movement. And, the Ron Paul movement had a lot of energy behind it. But after Ron Paul stopped running, the people that the Ron Paul movement brought in, like, they didn't really know what else to do. They kind of stayed in the GOP, but like they weren't able to get much accomplished. Rand came in, but Rand was not the messenger that his father was. And Rand tried to play the political game more than his father did, but wasn't really getting much done. I mean, you can applaud for his efforts and say, like, good on him for fighting that fight, but it wasn't really, materializing into anything, like physical or tangible as far as results go. So the Macy's, so then, what made the End the Fed rally successful was, and I wasn't part of this, but I'm telling it like third hand, so I might be missing some details. But what made it successful was that Mike decided to gather support from the LP. And so then he said, listen, so the LP has been not successful, not great. There's a lot of libertarians who aren't even part of the party because they think the party's a joke. But then that kind of begs the question, well, what if it wasn't? What if the LP wasn't a joke? What if it accurately and adequately represented libertarian philosophy, pushed libertarian candidates, and had an actual strategy for success instead of just like, autistically running campaigns like we saw with Gary Johnson, and even, to be quite frank, with Joe Jorgensen, where they're just kind of like trying to put a libertarian spin on like a duopoly style race where they act like they're legitimate contenders and they try to speak as if they're legitimate contenders who are going to win when everyone knows that's not what they're doing. So the Mises Caucus was basically created to be a like Ron Paul Revolution 2.0. And it's trying to take the things that Ron Paul did well and bring them into the LP, bring that culture into the LP, bring the strategy of decentralization and nullification that people like Michael Bolden have pushed at the 10th Amendment Center, and to make the Libertarian Party libertarian again, was kind of like the saying. And to get out that there was very early on talk about a takeover of the LP, because the LP has been run by a bunch of, to be frank, like blue-pilled, more prag types who were more
Losers.
Focused on
so say it like it is.
They were more focused on trying to appeal to like the neoliberal elite and trying to make libertarianism like, hey, we're cool too. Hey, give us a seat at the table. Hey, we're just like you. We just like free, you know what I mean? And just trying to suck up. And
we're also pedophiles. Isn't it great?
Oh God, no. So yeah, and the reasons why the LP was chosen was that the GOP, has been tried before, hasn't been that successful. The local level is where politics should be focused, and really the LP has not that much of an uphill battle to win at the local level because the GOP and the Democratic Party, they focus more on federal and state level elections. And so, it doesn't take as much money or as much effort to win at the local level. And the Libertarian Party is, for better or for worse, like because of its namesake, it is what a lot of people with libertarian sentiments first look at when they either get involved into politics and they don't like the duopoly, or if they're coming, like they're disenfranchised Republicans or Democrats, and they're like, okay, well, I'm not this and I'm not that. What am I? And they look for that third option. And for better or for worse, that third option that they most often look at is the Libertarian Party. Because, I mean, it has the word libertarian in it. So anyone that's even thinking they're remotely libertarian is going to look at it. The problem is the libertarian movement is way bigger than the party. And a lot of people, there's a lot of small L libertarians who aren't big L libertarians. So what the Mises Caucus first and foremost wants to do is to change that, to make the Libertarian Party, at least as far as like the messaging goes and the espousing of the libertarian philosophy, principles, and policy suggestions, to be libertarian. Two, it's to push the focus back towards the local level and promoting that strategy of decentralization and nullification, which we can get into, and I can explain that. And third, it's kind of like just decentralization and nullification are great, and there's utility in that as far as like decriminalization of drugs, Second Amendment sanctuaries, criminal justice reform, etc. But at the end of the day, the battle we have to win is the culture war. And the culture war that really matters isn't left versus right. It's us versus the state. And it's really the whole entire society against the state. But the problem is a lot of people are not awake. You know what I mean? Like they're basically like in the matrix, right? Like they don't realize the system that they live in, that they're basically slaves. So one of the things that we also focus on is like trying to wake people up, trying to engage the culture, and not engage the culture by kind of like this weak kind of pandering message, but engage the culture like Ron Paul did. And what did Ron do? He told the truth. That's basically all he did. He just got up there and would speak for 20, 30 minutes, 60 minutes at a time. And he was just based as fuck. And he was just like, listen, these people are murderers. These people don't hate us because of our freedom. They hate us because we're over there bombing the crap out of their countries. Hey, libertarian principles actually work. Hey, Keynesian economics is retarded. Hey, like that's basically all we need to do is to actually like not be ashamed to be libertarians, which unfortunately too many libertarians who have been in charge of the party in years and decades past have been ashamed of the principles and try to water them down and hide them because, we'll offend or scare away the normies by being principled. Well, no, actually, turns out there's a lot of people that actually are attracted to people who are principled, who are actually attracted to something that is different and isn't just like repackaged neoliberalism with a different, like a different flavor added in. So that's basically, I guess, like the summary of how the caucus started and what it is that it's trying to do.
Okay. Yeah, I got no problem with wanting an LP. LP. I know there are some people who say like having the LP actively hurts LP philosophy. Actually having an LP actively hurts libertarian philosophy. I don't agree. I could see the argument, but I don't care.
Well, honestly, in the past it has. I mean, in the past it kind of has. I mean, when you got someone like Gary Johnson and Bill Weld out there, going under the name libertarian, that does hurt. Honestly,
I thought Jorgensen was worse. I thought Jorgensen was worse because
I don't know. I can't agree there.
At least Weld and stuff had like controversy around him that could like stir up into libertarian dialogue. Jorgensen was just boring as hell. And people just ignored her. And I don't think she did any, like at least with Weld, you could say Weld kind of stirred up these sentiments that kind of
I would rather run a campaign with someone principled but ineffective who gets ignored than somebody who gets a lot of attention but does a shit job with it and misrepresents what our views are.
Well, when Bill Weld kind of started everything. I mean, I really see all these Mises Caucus stuff, like they kind of it seems like they kind of stem from the whole that Gary Johnson was a failure. Let's look at some other kind of
Yeah,
started.
it was, and it's really more towards with like Bill Weld was the biggest problem with that campaign.
I mean, Gary Johnson was no. You know, I mean, he had an interview where he literally did that. He went no. It's like, what the fuck is this? I will say he had one moment. Gary Johnson had one moment that made me actually like him. Was someone said, after you smoke weed, you have a 25% chance of having a heart attack, and he just grabbed his chest and fell out of his seat. I was like, okay. My phone was rolling for Gary Johnson.
That was the most based moment of his campaign.
Yes, my phone was like, I want to vote for Gary Johnson. I'm like, that's a lame decision. Gotta vote for Trump. I saw that. I'm like, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I might do it too. I didn't, but
yeah.
And so on a local level, you and I have a little disagreement on local level. I think on local level, you should be more people should be more pragmatic and really only run based on the location. Because people vote by letters. They don't in some instances they vote more like philosophy and like ideas and messaging, but more often than not people vote by letters. And I think you should just play into that. If you're in a blue district and you can run left and make changes, do that. If you're in a red district, run red. And if you're in a area, I don't know every area. So if you're in an area where there's really none of either one, you're just open to start your own LP kind of thing and go from there. Like I think it should be. I think it should be exclusive LP every location because it can be counterproductive. Like if you try to run LP stuff at say Bay County, which so Bishop is at, that seems counterproductive to me because so Bishop's already doing so much good work in this one location. But I mean, you and I have a little disagreement on that, so let's go into that a little bit.
Sure. Well, I'm not against doing good work with the GOP or even, I mean, it's hard to imagine in today's day and age, but if you can do good work with the Democratic Party or even the Green Party, it's probably possible on some drug decriminalization stuff. It's probably possible on some criminal justice reform. But I feel like a lot of them are just so woke that they wouldn't even take us seriously. But we've had some success there. But I think that my problem is that I'm not against working with the GOP or the Democratic Party and trying to kind of hijack that, like, people vote D's and people vote R's. I just think you don't need to be in those spheres to do it. I think you can get more done by having your local LP affiliate trying to run candidates. When you do that, you're actually going out into the community, and engaging with them, which is beneficial when you're doing it under the Libertarian banner. And then if you don't win, okay, well, you can still form issue coalitions and work with the people in the GOP at the local level, work with the people who are elected. So to me, it's like, I don't understand what you gain from being the minority Liberty GOP person that's in the, your town council or whatever, versus being somebody who's an outsider and just, through lobbying and issue coalitions. And a lot of times, like I had this conversation with Angela McArdle, a lot of times even the local GOPs and stuff like that, they aren't even that active and they don't even know what to do. And we've had our local GOP basically call us up and be like, man, these COVID mandates are awful. What are we going to do about it? It's like, well, see, you guys don't have any ideas? Like, okay, well, we can help you. We'll work together.
I don't have a problem with that. But my thing is that if you're in an area and there is no, like, your local GOP is just a bunch of people meeting up, talking about the latest Sean Hannity episode, you could easily walk in there and just hijack that and control that. And you already have the numbers at your side. You don't have to do it. And you could, like, why build coalitions when you can hijack existing groups of people who are already leaderless? Like you said, sometimes they're leaderless, and you can walk in there and lead
because you missed out on all the other pros of what the Mises Caucus is trying to do within the LP. Because when you do the things that you're doing with the issue coalitions, but the credit goes to the Libertarian Party and the Mises Caucus, and you're drawing people into that lightning rod, okay, that thing that's channeling into the culture and the energy there, that is more beneficial than when you're doing it through the GOP. The GOP gets the credit. And what is the GOP lightning rod channel into? The corruption and the swamp that Trump was never able to drain. So my problem with that is that you can get the same work done in the LP, but then your work and your effort is like the reward doesn't get attributed to the GOP, and you don't. And when you do it through the LP, you create this feedback loop of getting people plugged in and more interested in hearing about your ideas. Like if you're just a Liberty Republican, sure, you can get some work done, but then like people aren't as drawn to just like, oh, cool, he's a good Republican. When people see like a third party and they're under the name libertarian, and they see them doing this work and they see this cultural movement, that draws people in. And that was the beauty of the Ron Paul movement, was it drew a lot of people in. I don't think you can create that same culture from within the GOP.
Didn't Ron Paul bring everybody in through that? Though? I mean, he ran GOP.
But I think like
Into
Ron
his
Paul,
LP and didn't
like
win.
I'm gonna quote our friend Jose here. Like Ron Paul was literally like, you know, a lottery ticket. Like he was literally like, to me, like I don't know, a golden calf. Like he was a once in a lifetime opportunity. Somebody who was that based, and that he wasn't just at a state level or local level. He was at the federal level,
Yeah.
getting into debates and stuff on national TV back before podcasting blew up, back before that, and he was getting all this exposure. And that's part of, you know, but to me, it's like we don't have that right now. Like we have Rand Paul and Thomas Massey in the federal legislature, but are they affecting that kind of same change? Did they usher in the next era of the Ron Paul movement? No, they really didn't. So I feel like, you know, Ron Paul was a historical event. You know what I mean? Like that was an important part of history. But, you know, like I actually agree with, like, you know, the criticisms that like Matt Erickson makes and that Jose Galson makes, and like, you know, and it's like I always get frustrated because, like, no, I agree with you. Like, but to me, I think that's
I lost you completely.
Oh, you lost
me?
You
cut out. You cut out for a solid like couple seconds. My Wi-Fi is being complete shit, so I switched over to my hotspot, my phone, and during that intro, I kind of lost it. So back it up about 30 seconds, maybe a minute, if you could.
All right, so
I lost it.
So my thought so you brought up how Ron Paul did it through the GOP. Well, Ron Paul did it through the GOP through a special set of circumstances that I don't think are repeatable, because he was able to get elected over and over again because of like just his position in his community. And he was able to get in before podcasting blew up and before that was an option. And he was able to be, you know, based as fuck on the national level, and he got all this exposure. But, you know, Massey and Rand, they haven't been able to create that same thing at the national level. And really, that's the only benefit of, like, if you're going to do a Ron Paul, you should be doing it at the national level. You can't be a Ron Paul of your local county. But what you can have is, instead of having the movement be based upon a person who keeps running for president who's already got name recognition because he's in Congress, what you do instead is you create that same energy and phenomena, that same culture, but within the Libertarian Party and the Mises Caucus, which, guess what? Those aren't contingent on one man, and they aren't contingent on having to continuously run, like, you know, it's not Ron Paul having to run over and over and over again. So that's the benefit there, is that you're creating this mechanism that has this feedback loop where it can continue that same energy and be like a, you know, it's like a light that all the bugs and stuff get drawn in towards. Whereas the GOP can accomplish the same thing, but that light is not going to shine nearly as bright to bring in the people that we want to bring. Because to me, this is a lot about time preference and culture. And you can get work done within the GOP at the local level, but that'll be short-term victories with no long-term plan. So the Mises Caucus is the best of both worlds, where you can have your local short-term victories and the long-term plan of engaging with the culture.
You mentioned earlier about when you said, when you do it with GOP, credit goes to GOP. When you do it through LP, credit goes to LP. And I'm not the how to put this. If the LP wants to go through this, if you want to say the LP goes through this route and makes the political change, people come into the LP, and you use the LP as a platform to point them to, okay, well, here's where you can go learn more stuff. You know, if the Mises Caucus was directly pointing Mises Institute every 5 minutes, every success, which I think they do a lot of, I'm okay with that. I don't see how that is exclusive only to the LP. I think if you people are getting into politics now at different ways. I mean, young people are getting into it more. People who are older are questioning more. I don't see the GOP credit-wise. Yeah, it's going to go to GOP because it's GOP doing it. But education-wise, I don't see it being that hard to turn GOP people into pointing to Mises Institute, pointing to Tom
think
Woods,
it is
Bob.
because you have a mixed culture. Now, granted, the LP has a mixed culture too, but the mixed culture is that we have a bunch of soy boys and prags that are really ineffective, and really like how it's really a testament to how ineffective the LP is that the Mises Caucus within 2 or 3 short years is already on the verge of taking over. So really, it's like
it's over. You guys
are
taking it over.
So,
it's done.
but the GOP is connected to the swamp, and so even at the local level, that like it's kind of like trickle down economics almost. Like that stuff trickles down, and you don't. It's harder because when people come to the GOP, they're coming to the GOP for like all of it. They're not just coming for your local rendition of the GOP. Like they come to the GOP and they vote R not because of what you're doing in the local level, but because of the entirety of what the GOP does and everything they do at Washington primarily, because 90% of what people focus on when they get involved in politics is at what happens at Washington. So, and then anything you do, if you accomplish anything great, only like that credit gets added into that giant pot of the GOP. And then we see how the GOP like has always stabbed liberty movements in the back. We had the Tea Party, we had the Ron Paul movement. You know what I mean? We had what Amash and Massey were trying to do with their Liberty Caucus. Like they always get screwed once they get to the national level, and then at the local level, I just don't see how you can create that same culture because you're not getting like when people come to the Libertarian Party. And when you go around and you're knocking on doors and you're requesting for ballot access because you're part of the Libertarian Party, that is like some people look at it as a negative that the LP has to fight for ballot access.
I'm back.
I view it.
Can you hear me?
Oh God! Yeah, I didn't realize that I lost you again. I can hear you.
It's all good. I'm sure when you're talking, all you see is this Dave Smith and Michael Heights and the people in the sky going, "Yes." Stand under the base, Jacob. Stand under the base.
My problem is my camera is covering you up right now, so whenever you freeze up, I don't see you. I'm gonna move you over here.
Man, I don't blame you for covering my ugly face. That makes perfect sense. That is perfect sense. Respect.
I actually do it. Well, like I could see you, but like I just couldn't see that you were frozen. But I do that because otherwise, if you're over here, my tendency is to look over here, and then I'm not looking at the camera. And it's like I'm trying to look at the camera because that's what you're supposed to do.
See, I'm just staring at myself like the entire time. I'm questioning my head movement, my hat glare. Like I'll have a guess. Like, only except it was Scott Holton, who I kind of stared at like. Do you want to talk about Star Wars? Okay, cool. Yeah, and Jason Stapleton, the people I'm kind of just like, he's at my podcast. Neat. Like, honestly, the Scott Holton one was so funny because he'd talk and he'd stop talking, and I'd be like, "What's he waiting on?" Oh, me.
Oh, it's time for me to talk.
Time to stop using McDonald's.
Stop being such a cheap ass, Caleb, and go get your own damn Wi-Fi.
It's Wendy's, not McDonald's. Okay, we are a Wendy's respecter in this house.
Oh my God. So what was the last thing you heard before you cut out?
I think we were on. We were somewhere about swamp connections to GOP.
Oh yeah,
I don't disagree. I don't know. My local GOP, the connections are more people are into the talking national politics. I don't think there's any real connection besides namesake between.
So I have a good metaphor here. I'm going to use McDonald's as a metaphor. If I was trying to get more people in America to eat healthy, and let's say I decided, well, I can go and invest my time and money into this new fast food chain that's up and coming, and they have really good food, really good prices that are really healthy. And I think that if I grow that, that'll help create a movement of people who are eating healthier. Because people get fast food because it tastes good, it's convenient, it's cheap, and I'm going to do that, but through a less established franchise. Or it's like, or what if I did McDonald's and I just like try to find ways to within the system of McDonald's promote people to eat healthier and get the unhealthy things off the menu on my local McDonald's. And it's like, cool, all right, like maybe you do that, and maybe in your local community you actually do somehow through your efforts at McDonald's get people to eat healthier. But then it's like, do you think you've changed the culture of McDonald's? Do you think that 90% of people are going to McDonald's now because suddenly they want to eat healthy? Like, no. So like you could, I mean, it's not the best analogy, but it's the best I come up with. Like,
I mean, I actually, in that analogy, I would I'm still thinking the McDonald's option sounds better because people are going to go to McDonald's and they can see the healthy options on the side of the menu, and there will be people in the McDonald's group who choose to do that, and they're going to shame the ones who aren't.
But
And
then
the same is
90% of people
debate.
who go to McDonald's aren't going to go there to eat healthy anyway, because like they go
But
to
the ones
no
that
one goes to
do,
McDonald's.
the
But
ones that
you're
do are
missing
gonna
out. I think you're missing out on like uh there are ways to attract, like put it this way, there are ways from your new franchise that you can attract the people who would go to McDonald's and pick healthy options, and then at the same time build a new customer base.
I really, I can't imagine any new fast food place with healthy food making any, like the healthiest option
all
people
the
have is
time. I mean,
Subway.
look at how Chipotle came onto the scene. I mean, Chipotle kind of presented itself as, hey, we're and like it's a little bit more expensive than McDonald's, but still, I mean, not much. McDonald's prices have gone up; they're not as cheap as they used to be. But Chipotle,
Well,
like,
hot
hey, look,
dogs are 6 cents cheaper. Okay, we respect Biden on this podcast. He made my hot dogs 6 cents cheaper, and because of shrinkflation, the calories are also 40% less. So I am losing weight and saving money. Thank you, President Biden.
oh my god,
man, when we start the Tower of Babel podcast, it's gonna be so much fun. It is gonna be so much fun.
You're messing up my juju. I keep on going on great monologues, and then you're like, "Oh man, I missed all of that." And then you interrupt me with like,
That is this podcast. That's
jokes.
what this podcast is for. It is so I can
God.
crack jokes and people make serious political debates and conversation. Like my
Yeah,
goal, I want to get Thomas De Lorenzo on to talk about Lincoln, and I can just be like, Lincoln, know who hates the cedar was this guy, and I can just go on some dumb tangent that makes no sense. Like that's the dream. I want my goal is to have one of my favorite people on the podcast just leave halfway through the stream. That's my dream.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like I can see where you're coming from, but I just think, you know, to me, if I have the ability, like to me, it's like math. Like I always like to boil things down to math too, and it's like if like your goal is I want to achieve X, and that's a short term X equals short term victories in local politics to thwart off tyranny. It's like, okay, cool. I also want to accomplish X. If we have two options that can accomplish X, but one option gives you X plus Y and the other one gives you just X plus like a tenth of Y, like that's basically where I'm coming from. Is I think that I think through the Mises Caucus, we're going to be able to achieve those things at the local level, but I just think that there's no way to say that you can build the same culture of liberty in the GOP compared to what you can build in the Mises Caucus and the LP, when history shows us what happens every time a culture of liberty tries to grow within the GOP. It just gets trampled and kicked out, or people get corrupted by power. And so I don't see any other way out of that.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Right. Will you guys actually be using political power, or are you just going to grandstand and make messages?
So this gets into like what our political strategy is, which is decentralization and nullification. Secession technically too, although that's kind of like, 20 chess moves down the board. Not something you lead with.
If Rob's still in the chat, he's going to pipe up because he was going after the him and Buck Johnson. I don't know his last name. Buck from Counterfeit. Him and Buck were going after the LP of Texas, LP Mises Caucus of Texas, for being they were like, I don't know. I don't know. Rob is, if you're not following Rob, people, Rob is base as hell. Everyone follow him. I'm gonna put his link in the description.
Yeah, Rob's cool. So I would recommend checking out the 10th Amendment Center. Also, we could plug I did a podcast with Mike Meharry from the 10th Amendment Center, and we went into really deep detail.
I know he worked at 10th Amendment Center. Huh.
Yeah, he's the communications director. So
he's great.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. Great Christian anarchist. His work in the 10th Amendment Center is awesome. Big fan of him. Also has his own podcast called Godarchy, which I love checking out.
I haven't seen a new episode of that in forever, man. He's still doing it.
I don't know if he's still doing it or not, but
it was my go-to for a while.
Yeah. But yeah, so I had a great conversation with him. We went into more detail about it. I'll just give like the quick summary. Basically, it's like the 10th Amendment. I don't have the exact wording in front of me, but it's like, I think the 10th Amendment is something like not all the powers that are reserved for the people and the local governments that they have are listed in this document. And basically, it's like a limiting clause saying that basically, unless the Constitution explicitly gives the federal government the power to do something, it doesn't have the power to do it.
Yeah.
And so what you can do at the local level is any unconstitutional law based upon the 10th Amendment, you can draft, and the 10th Amendment Center does this. They help people draft this legislation, and it's worked for drug decriminalization, criminal justice reform, Second Amendment sanctuaries, lots of other things. You can, at your local level, like your little county or district or whatever, you can pass this legislation that basically what it does is it cuts off the enforcement of the law. Because the local law enforcement, yeah, they do enforce federal laws, but you can basically bar them from doing that by, at the local level, saying, no, we're nullifying this because unconstitutional. In our county, this law will not be enforced. We will completely ignore it. You can even do it statewide, like you've seen in Colorado and whatnot. So that's what the strategy is. It's not so much like, we don't think that we can get into Washington and win any meaningful victories. But what we can do is these decentralization and nullification strategies at the local level, which, I mean, like those are great battles against tyranny to help prevent people from getting incarcerated or aggressed upon against the state. And then B, through that activism and people like seeing what we're doing, that is, just one, like I was talking about earlier, a lightning rod for bringing people in and growing the movement. The idea is once you get enough counties in a state like built up enough with enough libertarian activism, people who are members of the local LPs, they've passed a lot of nullification and stuff. The idea is that, down the road, enough counties could band together, or even a small state or something, and they could seriously, if they wanted to, start pushing secession again. That obviously comes with risks. So that's, I'm not saying go out there and do it tomorrow, and I'm not saying to take it lightly, but I am pro secession, and I think that it's something that, we need to push. And I don't think that, I think there are legitimate criticisms about like worrying about what the federal government would possibly stoop to prevent it. But I think it's important to do it anyway and say, listen, we don't like force them to do that, and then really see what happens when they decide to accept themselves like that.
You look at success and look at the shit Lincoln pulled. You think the government's not gotten worse since then?
Right, exactly. But the idea is like, if you did that and then the government decides to get even more totalitarian, that can actually draw a lot of support in. And there are,
I'm pro secession all the way.
Did you see was it Sarah Silverman talking about basically the idea that like we should have a divorce?
Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire was talking about it.
So it's not it's becoming more of a popular idea.
Oh, yeah. You could say it's almost like liberty is getting popular. Like popular liberty is a thing now. Like it's.
Yeah, but I just think, I think we all can kind of see that the state's gotten so bad that there are people left and right who are becoming more open to the ideas of liberty. I just think that it's better to capitalize on that through something that's actually named libertarian than to do it through the giant swamp monsters of the GOP or the DNC. So that's really what it comes down to. Now, exceptions exist. I understand New Hampshire and Florida have some special circumstances, and I understand that like if there was some kind of emergency, like an immediate like threat of tyranny that you had to stop, and you don't have a local LP affiliate yet, then yeah, maybe you should look in the short run, just for your own safety and protecting your community, going through the GOP. I actually think there is some utility to that argument, but I would win that short-term victory and then use that influence that I just gained and be like, okay, cool. So here's what I'm doing. You're all either going to come along with me in making this GOP local affiliate entirely libertarian, like push it that far, or if you don't, I'm taking all my influence and power and prestige that I've built up here, and I'm
you mean you
now
wealth,
building
power,
an
and
LP.
influence? You wealth, power, and influence?
Listen, I'm not against wealth, power, and influence, and a lot of the stuff that I know like the paleos and the post-libertarians have talked about are not things that I think are contrary to what the Mises Caucus talks about. I mean, no one's going around, like Dave said in his conversation with Jason, like our message has never been, oh man, being rich sucks. Nobody should make money. Money's useless.
Money is the root of all evil, and no one should ever have any of it. We should all be poor.
I'm not going to put my faith in money because Jesus warns against that. But I'm not against, money's a tool, and if you view money as a tool, it's okay to say, hey, I'm okay with getting more ability to have more tools to get more work done.
See, I'm the opposite. I think money is terrible. I think no one should have any money. And I offer a wonderful service where you can send me your money and I will dispose of it for you in the most Florida way possible. And so to do so, please, you can go and buy Democracy is Cringe t-shirts. Say your love, say your hatred of democracy, and get rid of that cumbersome money. I'm available. It's shameless as hell. I want you to all money sent my way will be spent exclusively on the highest Florida cocaine and hookers.
Yeah, you need to give Caleb and me money so I can drink beer other than shitty Miller Lite. That's what I've come to. Folks.
You don't deserve better beer.
I'm a craft beer guy, and I was like, I'm out of beer. What am I going to drink tonight? Bria's like, there's some Miller Lite in the back. I was like,
we still have this?
I was like, how was it even in our fridge? I was like, whatever.
The fact that you hate it so much and I'm still drinking it, maybe you have a problem, Jacob. Have you considered?
Oh, I think that the level of self-hatred and masochism, it was already evident by the fact that I'm like in the loser brigade groups and had them on my podcast. I mean, it should be pretty self-evident that I have some kind of weird fetish for torture and punishment.
It bugged me so much that when they were saying your tweet, they said for my profile, so now my pick is just like in their group. I don't like that. It's weird to see my face places still.
They're so pathetic. And I went on there and I was like, guys, if you're gonna be losers and obsess over me, at least have the courtesy to tag me in the post, okay? So that I can come and watch. Because I have to hear about the group, and they won't let me in. I told them like my feelings were hurt. Like I thought that we had a special connection. I thought you guys loved me. And the fact that you're talking about me, you didn't even invite me to be there, like that's just that hurt.
No one hates me more than me. Let me in.
That's like who did I say it to? When I was going on Reed Coverdale's show, and everyone's like accusing him of hating Christians. I was like, hey, back off my boy Reed. He doesn't hate Christians, and even if he does, nobody hates Christians more than I do. Okay.
Yes. Well, I mean, as a Catholic, we murdered them, so I might have to beat them. I might have to beat them.
Fuck. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, listen, I mean, everyone's going to have different opinions on strategy. And listen, I think the Mises Caucus makes a lot of sense. I think that we get a lot of good work done. If you hear my arguments and you're like, it's not for me, I don't really care. The only thing I even really care about is just that I think everybody, whether you're in the Mises Caucus or you're trying the GOP route or you're an agorist or whatever, I think it's okay to have friendly conversations like this, and we can disagree and have arguments with each other. But when you go out there and you start like taking shots at people and shitting on people, that's when I'm kind of like, all right, dude, like we don't know how to create. Like, I hate when anyone acts like I know this is what's going to create libertarian utopia. It's like we don't know exactly how to get from where we are to a more libertarian society. All we have are theories that we're going to test. But Mises Caucus is a young venture. We've tried the GOP for years upon years. And I'm just very skeptical of somebody coming in and going, but guys, if we just do it for 10 more years, it'll work this time. It's like
15.
Bro, like
it's 15. I'm in the stats. It's 15. Okay. You have to. Yeah. We're counting all Kelly years, so we're kind of like we're not really sure yet. We're still negotiating, but we're counting all Kelly years.
But listen, there's a lot of stuff that Andrew at Popular Liberty talks about and Matt talks about. Like, listen, build your wealth. I'm all for that. I think it's even wise to encourage libertarians to be a bit more Machiavellian at times. I actually really loved, and this is something that we're talking about.
Hold on, back it up.
What?
Back it up. You say it one more time.
Well,
say the book. Say it.
No, I'm not saying it again. You guys have this weird fetish with that. I said it once.
You
I'm
made
not saying it
you
again.
hopped on that limey British cunt for saying Mices. Now I gotta hop on you for saying how do you pronounce it? It's
Machiavellian, right?
no
How do you say it?
Machian, like Machiavellian. It's like you're not pronouncing the R.
Machiavellian. Oh, God,
There we go.
that is such a
There we
little. That is such a
There we go.
nitpick.
There was
Machiavelli. It's
we are
Leviosa,
autistic.
not Leviosa.
We are autistic libertarians in this group. We correct our spelling. Here's how I knew libertarians were autistic. When I was in the Mises Caucus group, I saw Tom Woods and other people debating the Oxford comma. That's how I knew I found my people. Because these people are debating the greatest things.
We in the Mises Caucus, we had like a month-long tirade where we were debating whether men should wear shorts because Tom Woods doesn't think that men should wear shorts.
Men should not wear shorts. I'm going to say it now. He's wrong on Hawaiian shorts, but he's right on the Hawaiian shirts. He's wrong.
But if you're going to wear a Hawaiian shirt, you have to wear shorts. That's my whole point. It's got to be both or nothing. If you wear Hawaiian shorts and pants, then you deserve to be punched in the face.
Listen. You gotta wear your shirt and you gotta wear your skinny jeans, and you gotta have one whip in the left leg, okay? And you gotta cuff the right leg. You gotta cuff the right leg and have a tear in the left leg. This is Florida culture. I'm saying it with you now. These are trade secrets, Jacob.
Oh my God. But sorry. So yeah, I'm okay with Machiavellian tactics, like what Pete was talking about, where go to DeSantis and say, listen, look at the margins of last election. You can either give us what we want, or we're going to run somebody against you. Like, I think we're actually talking about, like, listen, we don't want to run anybody against DeSantis if we don't have to, but don't just not run anybody for free. Go talk to their staff and be like, listen, we won't run anybody against you. Or if we run somebody, we're going to find somebody who's like, super anti-cop or super legalized heroin and run them, like a more left-leaning guy who's going to steal votes from the Democrats, not the Republicans. And
why is it always heroin? Like, why is everyone's go-to heroin? I'm waiting for someone to say bath salts. Like, that's the one I'm hoping for here.
Oh my God, I have a really okay. I'm going to go for it. So I'll go one better than bath salts. Could we just talk about normalizing Zyklon B?
Yes.
Is that too far?
If I can't pronounce it, I want to ingest it. That's my policy.
I have to do that because I know it's going to own the libs, and that's if I don't own the libs at least once per podcast, then like what's the point?
It's a waste of time. Now I have to retract something earlier. I said Rob is based. I have to retract that statement after this. Rob, you've lost my full support. I have to block you on Twitter. Basketball shorts are fake and gay, and you shouldn't wear them. I'm sorry. Public announcement. Basketball shorts are fake and gay. Okay.
But yeah, I think
I'm really disappointed with Rob now.
I don't know. I don't like basketball shorts because there's not enough pockets, but I'm not against basketball shorts in general. I like, and I always wear like cargo shorts. Like, I mean, I need my pockets. If it doesn't have at least 8 pockets, 3 of which are those small little ones that you can't put anything in, then I don't want it. What
are you carrying in a bunch of pocket knives and like? I know. Let me guess. Anatomy to State, Chaos Theory, Economics in One Lesson, Your Peace, Constitution and Authority, and a short pamphlet of all Michael Malice's best tweets. How'd I do?
It's actually just a bunch of naked pictures of Dave Smith.
Fail. Dang it. I left too soon. I should have stayed in the Mises Caucus.
I mean, that's the other thing, too, that, I mean, like, I didn't even get into this, but, like, the Mises Caucus, we got freaking Dave Smith. We got freaking Tom Woods. We just got, like...
Yeah, you have all cool people.
You guys have Pete Guajones. And, like, listen, I like Pete, but he's not...
It's great.
He's not Dave. He's not Tom. You know, you guys got Jason and Pete, and we got Dave and Tom and Scott. So I think we win there.
Well, I'm gonna wait and see what Thomas Little wins those sides. That's my deciding factor. He's just retired and being awesome as always. And this is like I think I've honestly considered renaming my Twitter Thomas Little Windsor Respecto, and just posting memes that make. I have memes of Thomas De Lorenzo that I have made for rare occasions when I get a reference him on Twitter because he is the best.
Oh my God.
Okay, we've kind of gone over Artemis Caucus. I think I understand it better. I hope everyone listening also understands it better. I do have a few side questions for Jacob here because I've talked to Jacob a lot and I've never had him on the podcast. And so I have some questions now. We're moving away from Mises Caucus into some questions for Jacob. So,
okay.
Denomination, neo-Calvinists, correct? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like that's my theological leaning, so to speak. So, like, I go to my church is technically like non-denominational, but yeah, my theological beliefs, I would say, are sort of like, neo-Calvinist based, although I'm not. I have some I really don't have any place where there's 100% agreement, but the ones I find the most agreement with are the Dutch Reformers or the neo-Calvinists.
The neo-Calvinists. I don't know anything about neo-Calvinism. I know a little bit about Calvinism. What are the differences in neo-Calvinists and regular Calvinists?
It's mainly like so Abraham Kuyper and the Dutch Reformers. It's basically like a continuation of the Calvinist tradition, but like just more writings, more like slightly different, like building upon it, taking it in a kind of a different direction. So I think the neo-Calvinists are different from the and I don't know the history as well as maybe I should. I'm still learning about that, but I would say the only big difference between maybe the neo-Calvinists and like Calvinism regular is probably just areas of focus. And I feel like the neo-Calvinists don't spend as much time focusing on soteriology and like predestination, and they kind of like fleshed out Calvinist theology and philosophy on a deeper level, and made it more of like, gave it more of like a tradition with more depth to it than like when just like, I don't have any big problem with John Calvin, but like it's kind of like with Luther and Calvin, it's like they are defined by, oh well, like here's our major things where we are taking a stand against like the historic church, and then it's like they got defined by things about their doctrine, and that became like everything that people know about Calvinism is basically like from John Calvin and his views on salvation and predestination. And it's like the Dutch Reformers, I think, like created a more a whole well-rounded theology that touches into more areas of life, as far as like, and I'm still learning and reading more about them. I'm actually doing a podcast next Tuesday with Greg Baus, who I've had on my podcast before, and he's more of like a biblical scholar and person who studied this stuff. So I'm having him back on to have more conversations with him about Abraham Kuyper, and like one of the big things he pushed was an idea called sphere sovereignty, and it's kind of like a neo-Calvinist perspective on like the Bible's view of authority, and so that's going to be an interesting conversation. Like I kind of get sphere sovereignty, but I want to flesh it out more deeply in a podcast because it kind of informs what like our views are on like Romans 13 and the idea of like it connects to the ideas of governance and liberty. So yeah.
Neo-Cal. All I really know about Calvinists is I know very little about Calvinists. I know, like you said earlier, I know more about Calvin, and mainly because I'm just Catholic, I know a little bit about Calvin and Luther. That's really it. Neo-Calvin. I know Calvin was very big on a lot of Marian doctrines. The Catholic Church taught that Calvin was very big on believing the Marian teachings. Neo-Calvinist, his stances on Mary just kind of like ignored, or did any like carryover from Calvin himself?
You're talking about like Mary as far as like people praying?
Assumption of Mary in heaven, right hand of God, Queen of Heaven, those kind of things. Like
I don't see it talked about very much as far as I've looked so far. As someone who kind of leans Calvinist, and I've talked to other Calvinists and stuff, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not really a focus on it, but I don't know if there's really a big conflict there.
Yeah,
where it'd be like, oh wow, this is like, I mean, I'm sure there are some, and Calvinism is a very like there are some people like a lot of Calvinists out there who are like hyper Calvinists, and they're very annoying. And so
My scoutmaster was a Calvinist in Boy Scouts. Yeah, he's also a judge, and I don't know how I feel about a judge not believing in free will.
My problem with hyper Calvinists is that they take I believe in sola scriptura, but it's like to me what sola scriptura means is that like it is scripture alone that we derive what we know about God, and I think that scripture trumps like church hierarchy and authority. I don't think that the Bible, like I mean, like literally, I think it's just self evident. Like the Bible, because it's just a finite book, doesn't touch on every area of life, and like there are topics and philosophies we derive from the Bible.
That's just because you're missing like 7 books.
Oh yeah, but there's things we derive from the Bible that aren't like explicit in it. Like the concept of the Trinity is not something that like honestly is explicitly talked about in the Bible, but it's something we derive from it, and we created this like philosophical concept to describe what the Bible is talking about. So I'm a Calvinist, but a lot of Calvinists reject Molinism, and I really don't. I would not say Molinism is like something I would claim is 100% found in the Bible to the same degree the Trinity is, but I think that it's not in conflict. And I think Molinism actually kind of helps to explain, kind of like reconcile the Calvinist view of God's sovereignty and predestination with the ideas of like human free will not being violated by that.
One more question, and I'm gonna have to plug your stuff. Favorite argument for God's existence? Like when if you have arguments, atheists, like what's your go-to argument for God's existence?
It would have to be the moral argument. I think the moral argument and presuppositional apologetics are the strongest arguments for God. And I wasn't always that way. I used to hate the presuppositional arguments because a lot of presuppositionalists are like hyper autistic in the way they argue.
You see in the group chat with Ben.
and so I don't like their approach. I used to believe more in the cosmological arguments, like the Kalam and all that. And there's merit to it. Like I'll use them all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my favorite's the moral argument. And I've tried to have this conversation in good faith with Jose a few times. And like, he just kind of like skirts it by going, I don't know, it's subjective and he doesn't get it. But like, and I tried to push Reed on this too, but I just don't think you can really justify a morality based upon materialism. Like you just really can't. I actually had this conversation with Nick Ashley, and he kind of agreed with me. He's kind of been like, you know, rediscovering his faith a little bit, looking back.
He was born and raised Catholic, so I'm gonna have to work on that. I'm gonna have to get him before you get him.
But yeah, I think that the moral argument
and just get him to come back home.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the moral argument is the strongest for God because I think people can be moral and not believe in God, but I think it's like they don't have any justification other than like, well, it's just how I feel. Like, well, then it's inherently subjective. And honestly, you can be outright, and like this is my argument with Nick Ashley. I was like, when you're outraged at pedophiles, you can justify it all you want that, like, yeah, it's aggression. But what you can't justify is why you view it as evil. So yeah, I believe in like argumentation ethics and being able to like argue for. It
took 7 months for someone to say pedophilia on his podcast. I had a 7-month streak of no pedophilia talk on a libertarian podcast. You robbed me of my proudest point, Jacob. You robbed me here. I wanted to be like, whatever, like, oh, libertarians always talk about pedophilia and AIDS. I was going to link them to myself. Like, I haven't brought it up once, and here you go and rob me of my talking point.
I'm sorry.
I got to put down a new email when I send it out to people now. It's like, we've lost our streak.
But yeah, I mean, what I told sorry, blanking out here. What I told Nick, and he agreed with me, and I think it's a potent argument, is like you can't justify that moral outrage at things. Like when people get outraged at rape or pedophilia or murder or like things that like, yeah, you could define them as like, well, that's not, that goes against our theory of rights, and it's not conducive to society. It's not evolutionarily beneficial. It's like, cool. You can make those arguments all day long. But what you can't justify through evolution or materialism is why there's an outrage about why, like, listen, why is pedophilia something that we want to throw people in wood chippers for, and not just like, hey, bro, cut that out. Don't do it again. Pay a $50 fine. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that, like, you know what I mean? Like, that are bad, that are like violations of rights, but like the punishment isn't death or be ostracism from society. So like, why are, like, now you could make a justification for murder. Okay, well, you killed somebody, or we can't let you kill people. But like, why are people morally outraged to the level they are at these evil things? And I think that's just, you can't, if you know, I don't know if you can necessarily make, like, just from the moral argument, make a complete jump to Christianity, but I think it gets you pretty freaking close, because it definitely gets you into, you're justifying morality through some sort of metaphysical substrate. And then it's like, okay, well, now you're in the world of religion. And if we're doing comparative religion, I think Christianity is really easy to come out on top. And you got to make, it's a secondary argument to be like, okay, I've gotten you out of materialism, so now let's look at world religions, and let me explain to you why Christianity is based and why the other ones fall short.
I don't have a favorite argument of God anymore. I really like the cosmological argument from William Lane Craig, but I find that argument to be, it's very easy for someone to counter it and be like, well, if everything has a trace back to contingency, what is free will? And I don't want to have a free will debate with anybody, because I don't find it interesting or fun.
The free will argument is also, but like, the problem is a lot of atheists have just given up on free will. But if somebody believes in free will, it's like, okay, cool.
I actually agree with atheists that if I didn't believe in God, I would have no faith in free will. I'd be completely in the determinist stance.
Well, you know what's funny is that
Alex O'Connor people.
I think that actually the whole free will and determinism stuff plays into Christianity a lot. And like, as a Calvinist, you know, like, the Bible talks a lot about how we're dead to sin, we're slaves to sin. And I actually think that before people are saved, they kind of don't have free will. You know what I mean? Or they do. You
gotta get the red pill.
They I guess they do, but like, they only have a free will to kind of like do what their sinful desires have, like what they're enslaved to do. And so, like, true freedom, like, it's where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. Like, when God sets you free, that's when you really have freedom, because you're no longer a slave to sin, and you no longer have a heart of stone. So I don't know, I've always liked that connection there. I'm having James Gentleman back on my podcast the Thursday. He's another Catholic, and we're planning to get a bit more into our Calvinism versus Catholic. You know what's funny? Like, I actually like.
I'll be in the live chat for that one.
I really like the a lot of the Catholic Church. Like, I got really big into watching what is it, Bishop Bobby Barron, and dude, that dude's awesome.
Barron.
Robert Barron,
he's the best.
He's awesome. If Catholicism was like 100% the way he puts it, it would be hard not to be a Catholic. I think his arguments are very solid. I remember you did that stream like a week or two ago, and I was like ribbing you in the comments and stuff. But you guys were talking about things that I used to believe in, but that Barron kind of like helped me to learn were misconceptions about the Catholic faith. And there's a lot of like the tradition, you know, like Aquinas and different church saints and philosophers throughout the centuries that were Catholic. And
I will be ordering the 6 volumes of the Summa Theologica for my bookshelf. So soon I'll have the entire prime Aquinas work on the shelf, and I am very excited to up my Catholic cred with that one.
So yeah, the Anglican Church is actually this weird amalgamation of like Catholic-ish, but kind of a little bit of Reformed in it too. It's like Lutheranism with a little bit more Reformed and a little bit, and like, you know, kind of still call themselves Catholics. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I go to a non-denominational church that's a bit more contemporary in style, but like, there's a lot about the Catholic Church.
Starbucks yet, or
no? But the fog machines have been installed.
Ah, nice.
Yeah,
nice. You're getting there. You're getting there.
Yeah. Honestly, as I've gotten older, I used to really hate hymns and love contemporary worship, and now it's like I could sing nothing but hymns for an hour. And like again, there's a lot of like the liturgy and the tradition that's become more appealing to me the more I've grown deep in my faith. So there's a lot there that's appealing to me, but it's just, I mean, you know, my biggest hurdle is the Pope. I don't. I've heard that the argument, the whole like Peter is the rock upon which I will build my church. I just
Well, this
it
Pope
doesn't.
is a Jesuit, so he doesn't count. That's my argument. It's like you can't blame him. He's a Jesuit. Like what do you want? Okay. Um. Yeah, but
But
when it
it
comes to
just
the popes, did you see the Pope is having a meeting with Chelsea Clinton and whoever Clinton's daughter is and Fauci about the soul of the country or the soul of the world? Like he's having it together for this like big debate, big conversation. And Rob tagged me. He's like, Caleb, you see this? And I was like, y'all missing the plot. He's gathering them in one spot for the mass exorcism. This is the Genius 4D test of the Vatican in play here.
oh my god, that's hilarious. No, I think the Greek Orthodox are also interesting too, but they're a bit more. They kind of remind me of the Anabaptists, and they're a bit more. I don't know, like I'm not against like some of the mysticism and Gnosticism on like a small level, but they go like heavy doses into it.
Yeah.
Which
well, for me, it's really like when you're looking at the big two, I call them the big two because I can't think of the pre-Reformation Catholic Orthodox people. It's really, are you more Platonist or are you more Aristotelian? You know, because I'm more Aristotelian than Platonist, but the more I learn, the more and more I am becoming a Platonist. And I love the Eastern Orthodox. I found one in my city, and I'm like, ooh, I might pop by for a visit.
I don't know if you saw my my conversation with Karen Ann Harlows, but like I talked about this there. I really don't like identifying with a denomination or even a theology because like there's a lot of them I find value in, and to me it's like I'm a Christian, and so I think that just as like there's different schools of libertarian philosophy, and I think we can learn a lot from each of them, even though like I'm an Austrian through and through, but I can learn some stuff from the Chicago school. I can read some left libertarians of old, or people like Konkin, or even like Tolstoy was a bit more of a left libertarian anarchist.
My first anarchist I ever read was Jacques Enel. I can't pronounce his name because it's French, and I also don't even try. But he was a hardcore socialist, anti-technology guy. Like he was rejecting of technology. Dude was. Yeah, I call him. He's the Christian Unabomber. That's what I call him.
Right. Yeah. So great. Like I can, in that same vein, it's like I like learning and experiencing a lot of the different Christian denominations and theological perspectives because I like that analogy that William Lane Craig uses, where it's like the truth and seeking after God is not like you ever arrive. It's kind of like this archaeological dig that you kind of just keep exploring and learning more. And we don't. It's like what did Paul say? The metaphor, it's like I see very little. Like I'm looking through this like very dim, cracked glass or mirror or something. I forget the exact analogy, but like, listen, if Paul is saying, "Dude, I kind of know, but I don't freaking know," like that's Paul, and like that dude was like the most base.
Don't forget, Paul is a false prophet and Christian anarchist. I'm with him out of book.
God.
And that's where I realized, maybe I'm not a Christian anarchist, is when I saw all the Christian anarchists he whipped Paul out of the Bible. I was like, you know what? Maybe these aren't my people after all. But thankfully, I found Lou Rockwell, Tom Woods, and all these types. But like, yeah, I said for a while, every Christian anarchist has one idiosyncratic point they refuse to let die. Like, we all have one, and for a lot of them, it's whipping Paul out of the Bible.
Yeah, or the super autistic, no king but Christ. So what do you do the Paul?
We both know who you're talking about now.
Like it's not just him.
The moment you said no king but Christ, I'm like, Craig. And I love Craig. Craig is fun to talk to. I'm on a podcast. I've talked to him twice now. He's great. But when I can't hear no king but Christ and not saying Craig.
I've been on Craig's show twice now. And then I've done a debate with him on another show. I don't hate Craig. But he gets very, peak.
Your autisms don't mix.
Yeah. His autism triggers my autism, and then we have an autism battle. It's kind of like it's like Gohan versus Cell, or Naruto versus I forget the other guy's name, where it's like
Sasuke.
Sasuke. I was
gonna make fun of you for being a nerd, and then I had the name ready to go, so I can't.
That was my plan. I was like, I'm going to trap him. I'm going to make him out himself.
It's all anime stats up there. You got like the greatest anime heroes of all time: All Might, Deku, Socrates.
I've watched 3 anime. I've watched Dragon Ball Z, I've watched Naruto, and I've watched Attack on Titan. And that's it. I've watched a very little bit of crap, what's it called? The one where his brother is like a robot or in a suit of armor.
Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yeah,
Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
I've watched a tiny bit of that.
That is my favorite anime. That is my favorite anime.
Academia.
My Hero Academia.
My Hero Academia. Yeah, like I've watched like one episode or two maybe of each.
Those two you've only seen a little bit of my 2 favorite anime.
Really?
Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is the you want philosophical anime? That is the epitome of like.
Well, my brother's big into anime, but he insists on watching the English subbed and not the dubbed, and I get that's the purest thing.
Weeb.
But I can't. I just like my attention span is like to watch all these episodes in the original Japanese is tough, and like I couldn't do that with Dragon Ball Z because the Goku's voice actor in Japanese was like, oh my god, like no, kill me. But I only watch the sub for Attack on Titan and My Hero because they're still putting out episodes weekly, and I refuse to wait because I'm so fucking impatient. I have to watch it that morning, and so that's the only reason I watched in Japanese. I've only watched season 1 of Attack on Titan, and I started to watch a little bit of season 2, but like I don't know, that show gave me like a little bit of the EBGBs. Like it's a little creepy.
That's that first episode. I watched it when it first came out. Watched the first episode. Said nope, not for me. Not watching that ever again. And then years later, when the season 4 was coming out, my friends were like, "Dude, give it another chance. It gets better." And I watched it. I suffered through that first episode again. But
the first season is great. It's just but like the cringe parts of that show make me like, ugh. Like, well, actually, sorry. I guess I've watched one more anime. Ish. There was on Netflix like years ago. There was this this little mini anime series. There was like 4 episodes long. Try and remember the name of it. I forget the name. I have to look it up. But it was like this weird progression from like kind of weird cringe to like by the 4th episode, I was like, I'm sorry, does Netflix have hentai on it? Like, what the hell is going on? And I know anime always kind of like rides that line a little bit sometimes, but this was like, whoa, this is on Netflix. What is going on?
I've also made it 6 months that someone bringing up porn or hentai on my podcast. So thank you for robbing me of all 3 of my talking points. This is a Catholic show. Libertarians that never talks about pedophilia or hentai or porn. And you walked in here and just robbed me of all my talking points.
You bought a filthy Protestant on your podcast. What do you
I've
think was going to happen?
I haven't had Calvinists. That's the problem.
That's the problem. You had a filthy Calvinist on. We should listen. It's not my fault. I was predestined to come on here and ruin your show. So
you were predestined to suck. That's for sure. Well, we've gone for almost an hour and a half. Where can people find you? Where can they join the Mises Caucus? Where can they go and, go and do their thing? Where are the artists at? Where are they at?
Where are they at? They're everywhere. Just go on the Twitter and yeah, really. So Mises Caucus, if you have interest in learning more about that, takehumanaction.com. That'll take you to the Mises Caucus landing page. We're also on Facebook, so you can join the Facebook group. I'm also a moderator on the national Facebook group page, so I do the approvals. If you go to the Facebook group and want to join, answer the membership questions, or we will not let you in. It is our private property, bitch.
And if you post the wrong stuff, you'll be
yes. If you
forcibly removed, so
you'll be forced. Yeah, you're not allowed. We're not allowed to talk about, because we don't want Facebook to come down on us. We don't talk about helicopters, but we just say that we're going to go for a ride and teach you about economics.
Teach about physics.
Teach you about economics and physics. Right. As for my stuff. My podcast is Daniel 3 Biblical Anarchy. I've had Caleb on a few times. It's been a while, though. We'll have to get you back on sometime soon. But I think you've been on 3 or 4 times now. But so you can find me on like any basic podcast thing. Just type in Daniel 3 Biblical Anarchy, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, like everything. I mean, like literally I've tested this out. I can go on like the App Store, download a podcast app, and I'm usually on it. So
Yeah,
it shouldn't
you're
be
on
hard
my
to
most
find me.
obscure one, Castbox. You're on there.
Yeah,
Which
I'm on
is-
Cast. Yeah, I'm on all the weird. I'm just like, who has these? But you know what's weird is that Castbox is actually, I think, my third highest thing according to my tracker as far as like where people.
I have
watch
5
the
accounts
show.
on there, bro. You're welcome. I am all your viewers. You're welcome.
Dude, when I first started out and first started doing live streams, I used to think, oh, cool, there's always 2 or 3 people watching. And then I was like, wait, 2 of those are me because I have Windows pulled up.
I think right now I'm the only guy in the chat. Well, I think that's my one viewer is me right now. So
yeah. And
Nice.
then I'm on Facebook, although I'm a little bit picky about who follows me on Facebook because like my family stuff's on there. So the best place to follow me personally on social media is Twitter, which is my handle is @BiblicalAnarchy. So that's where you can find me and check me out. I also do a Mises Caucus podcast. I haven't done that in like a few weeks though, but that's called Take Human Action PA. So you can look that up. We've had some cool conversations. I've had some. It's a very low subscriber count for the guests we've had. I've had Angela McCardle on there. I've had Jeremy Kaufman on there. I've had some really based guests on that show.
Nice.
But it's got a really low subscriber count. I do that with, that's not just me. That's me, Rob Coburn of the Mises Caucus, and Adam Nutter, who is my second favorite comic.
Fat Dave, I got it.
Somewhere in New Jersey, Dave Smith is going, "Fuck you, Fat Dave."
Oh, Fat Dave, you get it? He's the fat version of Skinny Dave. It's really funny.
I just love that he was so triggered. He was like, "Fuck you, fat. You're not even fat."
He's a stick. It's absolutely hilarious.
It's the best. It's the best gag.
Honestly,
cool.
I ask you though, out of all the Tree Comedy, Towel Gang, Slep Gang, and Not a Podcast, which one do you think is the funniest? Because for me, Slep Gang is the funniest. Like the other ones are good, but Slep Gang is shit.
Legion of Skanks.
I don't find Lewis funny at all.
No, I think I prefer Tower Power Hour, but I just had to be a contrarian and answer you with not one of the options you gave me.
Well, that wasn't predestined, so because I didn't give you the options, and I'm God.
I used my free will. No.
You get one. Everybody gets one. Jacob. Everybody gets one.
Oh God.
Well, everybody, it's been another episode of the Catholic Libertarian Podcast. It's been a lot of fun. Go read more books and hit the notification bell. Like, subscribe, stay on the podcast. Have a good night. Oh, Jacob.